Great. So I actually want to jump right in. My name is Oliver. I always say thank you, Ben, for letting us be here again. I actually want to start with pretty much what you see at the picture right here. So we're going to talk about traffic lights. Now, before I actually talk about the pain I have with this, maybe we should sync our emotional state first. So I want to actually do a quick poll with you. Please, everyone, raise your hand who has positive feelings when they think about traffic lights. But before you start, let me set the mood a little. Okay, so now everyone raise your hand who has positive feelings when they think about traffic lights. Okay, so there are a few. That's actually a good thing because many of us forget when we get older that traffic lights are actually a good thing and that they help us in traffic to actually manage the chaos that we would otherwise face every day. So what happens during this time? So I think, for me at least, when I was young, you know, I used these frequently, but when I got older, I actually saw a lot of commercials about cars, and you know, they were always promising open roads and lovely scenery, and you know, always a pretty girl next to me. So I thought, hey, this is the way to go. I just need to grow up. But you know, in the moment then when you do grow up and you set up off in your car, the very first thing you notice, these lights actually turn red and then you need to stop, and it slows you down fairly quickly. So the pain I feel is not so much with the traffic light itself. I think we can agree we need them, but the problem I have is the way they work and the way they have me forced to be slaved to them. For example, as soon as I pull up to the red light, if I'm lucky, I'm in a position which allows me fairly easily to see the red light. But in most cases, it's actually more uncomfortable to actually see the light itself. Now, you might say, okay, this is the problem, you know, you have for a few seconds and you just go on. Okay, then I ask you about this problem. This is a very interesting one. Let me paint the scenery for you. Imagine you're going down a road and you're in a bit of a hurry, and then you just know if you see a green light at the very far distance that you're approaching, it'll turn red in the moment you get there. So every time you see this light, you have two ways to react. One, you're very happy, of course, that the light turns turns red. So maybe you do need to check your emotions. But the other reaction you could face is actually that instead of slowing down, you actually try to speed up. Now, this of course helps you to move along faster, but you do need to be careful, because if you do this frequently, there is a possibility that someone will not agree with you driving in this manner. So hopefully with this, I can give you a quick sense of the pain I feel every time I'm in a car and I'm faced with a traffic light problem, as I want to put it. And this is something that I want you to solve. Now, you might say, okay, how do we do this? What are you trying, or what do you want from me? So you can obviously guess we want you to develop an app. But to make it a bit more clear on what the app actually does and why we actually want you to do it, let me actually step back one step further, and then maybe we'll get there together. So the idea behind it, if you look at autonomous driving, cars these days, they face the problem that every system that we build for autonomous driving needs to be redundant in some way, because it's very difficult if one system fails that the car doesn't crash into, you know, a building or people would be very bad. For planes, this is actually fairly simple. For cars, it's very difficult because the environment is so dynamic and difficult actually to manage for a machine, at least at this point in time. For traffic lights, the way to go, at least for now, is to use camera-based systems. That is mainly because most of the traffic lights we have today are fairly dumb. So this is the only way we can do it at the moment. Of course, the broader idea would be to do it over frequency, but imagine when you use the camera, you do have also some other problems. So, for example, the visibility could be quite bad, and then you don't see the traffic light as good. This might be manageable for humans, but it's very difficult for a machine to actually notice this. Another situation is that we build our infrastructure the way we liked our infrastructure to be, and not suited for cars, at least not always. And you can imagine if it's difficult for you to see the lights in this picture, it's very difficult for a machine to actually notice where the lights actually are and which light is meant for me. And this is actually the difficulty they face. So again, I mentioned it before, the easy and quickest solution would be, okay, we upgrade our infrastructure, make everything smart, yee-hee, and we solve the problem, right? Well, that costs a lot of money, and this is something that will have to take many, many years to do, and then yeehaw, maybe one day in Germany we manage to do it, then you drive over to Austria and the traffic light speaks a different language, even if it's just with an accent. So, difficult situation. So the point, or where I want you to come with me, is maybe we should try to approach this problem not from a perspective how a human would solve it, but on how a machine may be easier, or for a machine it would be easier to do it. Because when we think about solving these problems, we always try to do it from a human perspective, not so much from a machine perspective. And what machines are very good at is not punching numbers and crunching data. And if we have enough of data, and we live in the age of data, this should be something we can manage. So the idea, what I want you to do, is actually we want to develop an app, which collects movement data. So an app that every time you move around in your car with your app, you should collect data on that we can actually register on how the car moves, where it stops, how long it stops, and stuff like that. With this data, then we want to look and identify where we actually find traffic lights in the environment that you move around in. Either you can do this from data that you find from other sources, but the points or the important part in this project is to learn how the traffic lights behave. Now, there are exceptions. There are some smart traffic lights, which change light depending on if the cars are coming, but we just heard it, rush hour traffic in Munich, there are no smart traffic lights anymore because cars are coming from all directions and they always change lights in a very periodic manner. And this is something that the machine algorithm should be able to learn, depending on the time, depending on the date. And then the app should actually display what the next traffic light that I'm approaching actually shows for color. Now this in itself, I think you would agree, is not so interesting for us at this point, but what would be very interesting for us is when does it actually change color? And another point which would be very interesting is how fast do I need to drive to actually get over the light before it changes color. Now, we should of course mention here at this point, we should never suggest to an operator or a driver that he drives over 100 when he's in town. But this is again details that we need to figure out. I hope I could somehow give you an idea of what this part of the project in the iPraktikum will be like. If you have any other questions, I think we can go into the buffet later on, and then you can ask as many questions if you like. Now, I started out with the presentation of the problem very at the beginning, but I did not say anything about the company I work for, so maybe just in a few words. I work for MSG. They are based here in Ismaning, so they're pretty much on the other side of the Isar. We started out as a fairly small company, so actually the people who founded the company are still in the company, but now this year we're almost over 8,000 employees, and we're proud, maybe, to actually announce that this year is the first year we breach the $1 billion revenue point. So this is a great goal for what our founder always said to himself, so he will probably retire after this year. But again, I think this is a point where he can actually then go out and be happy that what he made and what he accomplished. But again, for us, this is an opportunity to grow with the company, and we've employed many, many people, and if anyone's interested, just approach me and we can get in touch. So so I spared a minute. Have fun with the last presentation, and we'll see us at dinner? No, buffet, whatever. I hope it's delicious.